Have you ever wondered how an ordinary man can turn into a notorious criminal? Let's delve into the enigma that is Bobby Joe Long. To the untrained eye, he was just an average man, just another face in the crowd. But beneath this facade lurked a dark secret, a secret so horrifying it would send chills down the spine of even the most hardened true crime aficionado. Bobby Joe Long, a name that would eventually become synonymous with terror, was born in the heartland of America. He grew up, got married, and even had 2 children. A seemingly typical life, right? Yet this ordinary man would morph into a monster, one of America's most infamous serial killers. In the span of just 1 year, 1984 to be exact, Long's dark impulses escalated to an unfathomable degree. Tampa Bay, Florida became his hunting ground. 10 women, each with their own dreams, their own lives, and their own stories, fell prey to his brutal onslaught. Each murder more chilling than the last, as if he was perfecting a gruesome art. The name Bobby Joe Long was no longer just a name. It was a symbol of fear, a grim reminder of the evil that can lurk in the most ordinary of men. His crimes weren't just shocking due to their sheer number, but also because of the brutality and callousness with which they were executed. His victims were not simply statistics. They were daughters, sisters, mothers, whose lives were cut short in the most horrific way possible. But how does an average man turn into a cold-blooded killer? How does one go from living a seemingly normal life to becoming a name that would instill fear in an entire community? What were the circumstances, the events, the triggers that led to such a drastic transformation? But what events led to this transformation from an ordinary man to a cold-blooded killer? What if I told you that the signs were always there? A question that invites us to peer into the early life of Bobby Joe Long. In our quest to understand the making of a monster, we must first look at the seeds of darkness sown in his youth. Long's childhood was far from idyllic. Born into a troubled home, he was forced to navigate the rough seas of a tumultuous family life, often bearing the brunt of his mother's psychological and physical abuse. This early exposure to violence and dysfunction would leave deep emotional scars that would persist into his adulthood. However, it wasn't just the emotional trauma that shaped Long's future. At the tender age of 5, he suffered a serious head injury, resulting in frequent seizures and blackouts throughout his childhood. Some experts believe that this early brain trauma may have played a significant role in his later violent behavior. And then, there were the women in Long's life, each relationship more turbulent than the last. From his abusive mother to his failed marriages, Long's interactions with women were fraught with conflict and hostility. His first marriage, though filled with promises of love and a fresh start, quickly turned sour, marred by domestic abuse and infidelity. His second marriage fared no better, ending in a bitter divorce that left Long embittered and volatile. In examining the early chapters of Bobby Joe Long's life, we see a portrait of a deeply troubled individual. His childhood was a storm of emotional turmoil, physical violence, and psychological damage. Each of these elements, in their own way, contributed to the seeds of darkness that would later grow into a terrifying manifestation of evil. But it begs the question, can a troubled past justify a murderous future? A question that echoes as we delve deeper into the enigma of Bobby Joe Long. A troubled past, but does it justify a murderous future? In 1984, the city of Tampa Bay fell into the grip of a horrifying predator. It was a year marked by darkness and terror as a man named Bobby Joe Long embarked on a deadly rampage. Over the course of just 8 short months, he brutally ended the lives of 10 women, leaving a trail of terror that would forever scar the city. Each victim was found discarded, their lives abruptly and violently ended. Long didn't discriminate. His victims ranged in age and background. He prowled the streets under the cover of night, hunting for his next prey, his actions becoming increasingly bold and shocking with each passing day. As the body count began to rise, the city was gripped by a fear that was palpable. Mothers clung to their daughters, warning them not to venture out alone after dark. Women changed their routines, always looking over their shoulders, jumping at the slightest sound. The city was held hostage by a faceless monster. the unknown identity of the killer only adding to the mounting terror. The Tampa Bay police were desperate. They worked tirelessly, following every lead, every hunch, pulling in resources from other districts. They were hunting a ghost, a predator who seemed to strike at will, leaving little to no trace behind. As the weeks turned into months, the pressure to catch the killer grew exponentially. Yet despite their best efforts, Long continued his murderous spree, seemingly undeterred by the increased police presence and the citywide fear. It was as if he was taunting them, daring them to catch him, confident in his ability to remain a step ahead. But as the saying goes, pride comes before a fall. Unbeknownst to Long, the net was closing in. His reign of terror had set in motion a series of events that would eventually lead to his downfall. The city may have been paralyzed with fear, but the end was near. Every reign of terror has an end, and for Bobby Joe Long, it came in an unexpected way. The predator was finally cornered not by the relentless pursuit of law enforcement, but by a brave and resourceful young woman, one of his intended victims. Her name was Lisa McVeigh, a 17-year-old girl who had the audacity to outwit a monster. Kidnapped and terrorized by Long, she did not give in to despair. Instead, she carefully observed and memorized details about him and his environment, including a distinctive red color, which would later prove to be crucial. After a 26-hour ordeal, Lisa managed to convince Long to let her go, and with her freedom, she carried the key to ending his reign of terror. With her invaluable information, the police were able to track down Long, arresting him at his residence. The evidence stacked against him was overwhelming. In his home, authorities found souvenirs from his victims, and his vehicle matched the description given by Lisa. Long's trial was swift and decisive. The jury was presented with a mountain of evidence, including DNA matches, the testimony of Lisa McVeigh, and Long's own confession. Confronted with his crimes, Long pled guilty and was sentenced to death. For the families of his victims, there was a grim satisfaction in the verdict, a small measure of justice for the horrors their loved ones had suffered. Yet it would take another 30 years before the sentence was carried out. In May of 2019, Bobby Joe Long was executed by lethal injection, bringing to a close one of the most terrifying chapters in Florida's criminal history. But even in death, Long's shadow looms large. His crimes, shocking in their brutality and number, have left an indelible mark on the community he terrorized. Justice was served, but the scars left by Long's crimes can never be erased. The echoes of his monstrous deeds serve as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the hearts of men. What happens to a city after a serial killer has been caught? The answer is not as straightforward as one might think. The arrest and conviction of Bobby Joe Long did bring a sense of relief to Tampa Bay, but it also left deep scars that would take years, if not decades, to heal. For the families of the victims, Long's reign of terror was a nightmare that extended far beyond his capture. They had to grapple with the loss of their loved ones, the horrifying manner of their deaths, and the public spectacle that their personal tragedies had become. Their pain, their grief, and their resilience serve as a stark reminder of the human cost of such heinous crimes. The city of Tampa Bay, too, had to reckon with the aftermath. The fear, the paranoia, the mistrust that had once gripped the city gradually eased, but they never truly disappeared. Instead, they left a lingering sense of unease, a shadow that even the brightest Florida sun couldn't fully dispel. Yet amid the darkness, there were glimmers of positive change. Long's case led to significant advancements in police procedures and forensic science. The investigation into his crimes showcased the power of DNA evidence, a relatively new tool at the time, in identifying and convicting criminals. It also highlighted the importance of interagency cooperation in tackling such complex cases. These improvements have since become standard practice in law enforcement agencies across the country. They have helped solve countless other crimes and brought closure to many more victims and their families. In this sense, the legacy of Bobby Joe Long extends far beyond his own heinous acts. It serves as a grim reminder of the depths of human depravity but also of our collective ability to learn, adapt, and improve in the face of adversity. Bobby Joe Long's reign of terror left a lasting impact, but it also sparked changes that continue to help in the fight against crime.